Hello, my name is Alberto Marquez. In this video about system dynamics, we will discuss the fundamental behavior patterns that we find when we see the most fundamental feedback loops. The fundamental dynamic behaviors that we will see include exponential growth, goal-seek, the S-shaped growth, oscillation, growth with overshoot, and overshoot and collapse. First, let's discuss exponential growth. The exponential growth is the most fundamental of the feedback loops in which we have a positive feedback and the state of the system is increased by the growth, by the rate that feeds into the system. Notice that both signs in the arcs are positive and we have a reinforcing loop. So there is no limit into the growth of this simplified model. Of course, in practice, usually there is a limit to the resources that we have. But this model represents well the beginning of the growth period of any population or reinforces process. Secondly, we have goal-seek. With goal-seek, we have a goal here represented with the red line, and the state of the system is represented with the black line. And we have discrepancies that keep reducing and the system is trying to reduce those discrepancies as the time goes, and eventually it reaches a steady state which is very close to the goal, or relatively close to the goal. In order to create this system, we start with the state of the system and a goal, and the comparison of the state of the system and the goal turns into the discrepancy, and we want the state of the system to consistently reduce that discrepancy. That's why we have a negative sign. And once we have the discrepancy, we can project a corrective action that approaches the system closer to the goal, reducing the discrepancy. This is also one of the most common models that we could have, but as you can see, this is start to get more sophisticated interrelation between the elements that form the system. The next one is oscillation. Oscillation also refers to looking to get to a goal, but due to the fact that there is delay in the information or delay in the actions, the goal is overshoot, either going up or down. And when the state tries to get to the goal from the below position or the upper position, and that's why we eventually get in time we get oscillation. So as I said, we start with the state of the system, there is a delay, and we compare that to a goal, which eventually computes the discrepancy, just like in the previous case, and the discrepancy generates a corrective action, and the corrective action tries to correct the system. Delays could be present in any one of these arcs of activity, either by the state trying to correct the discrepancy or from the actually acknowledgement of the discrepancy until the corrective action starts to be executed, or from the corrective action being executed in how long it takes to start to affect the system. And because of that, all these delays may cause for the system to oscillate. The next model is the S-shaped growth. The S-shaped growth takes the name based on the form of the function through time that we see. And we start with a feedback loop process, and this process has a similar situation as the goal in the sense that we have a feedback loop, but this feedback loop refers to the adequacy of resources and a carrying capacity. The carrying capacity refers to how many resources we have, and the resource adequacy is how well that carrying capacity is sufficient to keep the state of the system up to a certain level. Once we have a resource adequacy, if we have more of that adequacy, then we would increase the rate that grows the system. But if eventually that resource adequacy is reduced by the mere fact that the state of the system has grown, then we have a limiting to the growth. Say, for instance, if you are growing any kind of crop in land, there is a point in which you cannot exceed the space that the land gives you, or other resources. It could be the nutrients, it could be water, it could be other factors. So obviously the carrying capacity of the system will be that one that is the limiting resource for the activity. If there are other resources that are available and are not limiting the system, it doesn't matter. The system will be limited by the one that is the shortest resource available for the system to grow. And the next model that we will consider is the S-shaped growth with overshoot. In this model, we grow and then we pass the goal and then oscillate. So we begin with a feedback positive loop, reinforcing loop, as the first one we saw. And then we also consider a carrying capacity and resource adequacy, but now we have a delay in the effect of what we have, and this delay allows the system to pass beyond the goal and then in the corrective action pass again in the opposite direction, starting to create the oscillation. Essentially, the delay is creating this effect of oscillation, and in order to avoid the oscillation we will need to account for the delay, trying to anticipate it, or alternatively what we could do is to reduce the delay time. The last model that we will discuss is the overshoot and collapse. The overshoot and collapse has this behavior in which we have a growth and then eventually reaches a point in which, due to the fact that we consume too many resources and the system cannot sustain itself back, the system will collapse and then it will never be able to grow again. The way that this works is we have the reinforcing loop, and as long as we have enough resources, then this process can still happen. But now the carrying capacity of the system is reduced by the state of the system. In other words, the carrying capacity is not sustained, and because of that we are losing carrying capacity in the long run, jeopardizing the possibility of the system to remain in the state in which it is. Once we have that, the resource capacity goes back again, or resource adequacy goes back again, affecting the fractional net increase and the possibility for the system to grow. But the thing is that there is no, at least in the model as it is constructed here, the carrying capacity is not built up back again. The carrying capacity in systems usually takes a long time to build, and it depends on a complex set of infrastructures or relations among different variables, like biodiversity, for instance. So the carrying capacity can be jeopardized. So these are the main models that we have. For more information, you can find the book by Stedman. The name of the book is Business Dynamics, System Thinking and Modeling for a Complex World. I did not select this as a textbook for this course because it's of a higher complexity than the introductory book that we're using. But if you're interested in knowing more, please feel free to look for this book. It's an outstanding book.